As Anna navigated the bazaar's winding alleys, she passed through sections devoted to masterful craftsmanship, rows of hand-woven carpets unfurled like tapestries of magical tales, their intricate patterns whispering of sultans, deserts, and ancient omnipotent genies hidden in lamps. In the metalwork section, brass and copper gleamed under the lantern light, delicate jewelry boxes, ornate teapots, and filigree trays reflecting the skill of generations. The spice stalls were an explosion of color and scent, pyramids of multicolored peppers, sumac, and dried rose petals forming a kaleidoscope of rich, lively hues. The air was overflowing with their intoxicating fragrance, a heady mix of food and spice that lingered in every breath. This was more than a marketplace. It was a living, breathing tapestry of Istanbul's cultural and historical soul. Every hidden corner seemed to hold a discovery, every alleyway a surprise waiting to be unveiled. As she wove through the throng of shoppers, the fleur of history subtly charmed her, mingling with the electric thrill of her mission. She wandered through the maze of shops, admiring the trinkets and handicrafts while meticulously checking her surroundings. In one shop, a particularly crowded establishment filled with locals and tourists alike, she saw her opportunity. When she entered the bustling shop, she quickly slipped inside a fitting room and changed into her disguise. The hijab she donned on was a gentle, inconspicuous gray, its fabric soft and flowy. It was made of a lightweight, shimmering material that draped elegantly over her head and shoulders, concealing her entire upper body. The hijab was paired with a matching abaya, a long, loose-fitting gown that fell gracefully to her ankles. The abaya was also adorned with delicate silver embroidery along the cuffs and hem, adding a touch of subdued elegance. The combination of the hijab and abaya altered her appearance and concealed her identity thoroughly. The voluminous fabric covered her from head to toe, and the loose fit ensured that her figure was obscured. The hijab wrapped around her face, leaving only her eyes visible, which were shielded by the modest, loose folds of fabric. With her hair hidden and her features shrouded, she looked like an entirely different person. Native, one of the diverse crowd of other Turkish women milling about the market, as she prepared to slip through the shop's back door, Anna cast a cautious glance around. The vibrant market scene was a swirl of colors and motion, but her practiced eye caught sight of a pair of figures lingering near the shop's entrance. They were dressed in dark, inconspicuous clothing, their eyes peering through the throngs of shoppers with a keen, searching look. Her heart skipped a beat. Their presence was unmistakable. They were looking for her. Suddenly, one of men glanced in her direction through the shop's window. She flinched and pulled her head covering a bit lower, then promptly turned around and ducked through the back door, noiselessly slipping into the narrow alleyway behind the shop. Her heart was beating fast, but she told herself to stay calm and focus on her next move. Accordingly, she managed to reach the docks. She approached a small vessel that was just about to set sail, giving the boatman a polite but firm nod. "Take me to the Galata Tower," she instructed in a voice that allowed for no rejections, and was loud enough to hear for other people loitering around the piers. To stop any other possible objections from the owner of the boat, she briskly showed a thick stack of Turkish liras in his hand, and the boat at last departed. With a sigh of relief, Anna turned around and looked at the strip of land that was rapidly growing smaller. There she could now see the figures of two men, her pursuers, walking toward the pier, their silhouettes clearly visible against the backdrop of the port's buildings. Young woman suppressed a light chuckle and congratulated herself with this small victory. She was one step ahead of her adversaries, and she intended to keep it that way. Once they were far from the shore, she gestured to the boater, giving a new directive. "Change of course! Head to Beyler Bey Palace." The boatman raised an eyebrow and shook his head disapprovingly, but another stack of liras placed into his hands was convincing enough, and to the palace they went, navigating the boat through the shimmering waters of the Bosphorus. Their destination point grandly loomed ahead, an impressive Ottoman-era structure perched regally by the water's edge. The Beylerbeyi Palace, with its grandiose white marble facade and complex carvings, exuded a flair of timeless elegance and opulence. The domes and arches of the palace were adorned with delicate motifs and golden accents that copiously glowed in the sunlight, casting a spell of grandeur over the entire landscape. Chapter 13. Unexpected Discovery. Anna's eyes fluttered open, disoriented by the unfamiliar sound of a loud, insistent beeping. She blinked, the blare of the alarm clock on the nightstand slicing through the thick fog of her profound sleep. For a moment, she couldn't place where she was, her mind scrambling through the remnants of imagination and reality. The room slowly came into focus. The soft, muted colors of the walls, the neat arrangement of furniture, the distant droning of the city below. She pushed herself up on one elbow, her consciousness still hazy from the vivid dream she'd been having. The realization that she was in a hotel room in Istanbul hit her with a jolt. She had been so tired last night that the exhaustion had carried over into her sleep, wrapping her in a cocoon of deepest slumber. She reached out to silence the alarm, her fingers fumbling with the unfamiliar device. As the beeping stopped, a long sigh of relief escaped her lips. The room was peaceful again, save for the faint sounds of the bustling city seeping through the window. She glanced around, trying to reorient herself. The sunlight filtering through the curtains brought a cheerful, uplifting atmosphere, highlighting the small details, the intricate patterns on the rug, the framed prints on the walls, and the small vase of fresh flowers on the bedside table. Anna rubbed her eyes and swung her legs over the edge of the bed, her feet touching the cool, tiled floor. The events of the previous night, the meeting on the boardwalk, the strange note, flooded back into her memory. Her heart sank slightly at the thought of Darius's absence, and the mysterious blank note that had left her feeling more anxious than ever. She pushed herself up and shuffled to the bathroom. As she reached for the handle to turn on the faucet, ready to splash some cold water on her face to fully wake up, it suddenly came loose in her hand, falling to the bottom of the sink with a deafening metallic clang. Before she could react, a sudden burst of water shot out from the faucet, spraying across the bathroom. The counter was instantly drenched, and a wave of cold water hit Anna, soaking her throughout. She shrieked, stumbling back as the spray continued. The entire bathroom, and with it, the envelope and blank note now were soaked through, their once neat, pristine white edges curling and darkening with the water damage. Frantically, Anna reached for a towel, trying to mop up the mess, but the water kept coming. Her frustration mounted as she realized the full extent of the damage. The whole suite was quickly turning into a watery disaster zone. Seeing no other option, she dashed out of the bathroom, dripping wet and panicked. Her first instinct was to call reception for help. She grabbed the phone by the bedside, her wet fingers slipping slightly on the plastic cover of the receiver. "Hello?" The receptionist's voice came through. "There's a flood in my room," Anna blurted, a little hysterical. "The faucet handle came off, and now there's water everywhere. I need a plumber, right away." The receptionist assured her help is on the way, and asked for her room number. Anna gave the information and then returned to the bathroom. She tried her best to contain the mess, but the water was still pooling around the sink and on the tiled floor. Minutes later, she heard the sound of approaching footsteps, and a knock on the door signaled the arrival of the help. Anna opened it to find a maintenance worker with a toolbox. He took one look at the scene and immediately set to work, shutting off the water and beginning to fix the faucet. Anna watched helplessly as he worked, the frustration from the morning's mishap bearing down on her. The soaked envelope and note laying in a wet heap on the counter along with her other belongings were now a loss, and the only thing she could do was wait for the repair to be completed. The repairman finished his work faster than she had anticipated, handing her a small bill along with a playful remark about being more careful with the hotel's plumbing in the future. She barely mustered a response, dismissing his attempt at humor with a tired wave of her hand. The morning's chaos had worn her thin, leaving her irritable and drained. With a sigh, Anna decided she needed a pick-me-up, something to shake off the frustration and lift her spirits. She got dressed rather quickly and stepped out into the crisp morning air as the first golden rays of sunlight bathed Istanbul in a warm welcome. The city stirred to life around her. The hum of early commuters, the distant call to prayer echoing through narrow streets, and the rich, heady aroma of freshly brewed coffee that was curling through the air greeted her heartily and instantly shifted her mood. Wandering through the unfamiliar streets, she relaxed and let her senses guide her until she stumbled upon a charming cafe nestled in a corner. The eatery, adorned with potted plants and wrought iron furniture, exuded a cozy and hospitable atmosphere. Its striped blue awnings fluttered gently in the breeze, and the ornate plump cushions, dappled in morning light, seemed to beg her to take a seat. Anna chose one of the tables near the sidewalk, where she could enjoy the sights and sounds of the city and the morning's gentle warmth. A cheerful, older Turkish woman, her wide smile radiating friendliness, approached with a menu in hand. With a mix of broken English and expressive hand gestures, she enthusiastically recommended the house specialties, her lively demeanor making the exchange all the more charming. Soon after, Anna's breakfast arrived, a feast of delicious and aromatic delights. The centerpiece was a beautifully arranged plate of menemen, a traditional Turkish breakfast dish made of scrambled eggs, tomatoes, peppers, and spices. The eggs were perfectly cooked, with a creamy texture that complemented the rich, savory flavors of the tomatoes and peppers. A sprinkle of fresh parsley and a touch of crumbled feta added a burst of flavor. Accompanying the menemen was a basket of freshly baked simit, a type of sesame-crusted bread that was crisp on the outside and soft on the inside. The simit was served with a side of creamy clotted cream, honey, and a selection of vibrant, tangy jams. Anna spread the clotted cream generously on the simit, then drizzled it with honey, savoring each bite. A side of olives, cucumbers, and tomatoes completed the meal, their freshness balancing the richness of the menemen. To wash it all down, Anna enjoyed a steaming cup of Turkish tea, served in a delicate glass with a slice of lemon. The tea was fragrant and robust, its rich velvety magic soothing her as she sipped it slowly. She lingered over her drink, savoring this moment of calm, before diving back into her pursuit of Darius. With her hunger satisfied and her spirits lifted, Anna now felt prepared to face the challenges of the day ahead. The bustling energy of Istanbul seemed to embrace her. She returned to the hotel with a sense of renewed vigor after the leisurely breakfast. The sun was already climbing higher, bringing a rising heat into the city. When she stepped back into her hotel room, she made a beeline for the bathroom to get herself ready. The sight of her reflection in the mirror brought a small, contented smile to her lips. The lingering taste of a delicious breakfast and the city's vibrant energy had softened her expression, adding a healthy flush to her cheeks. She drew in a slow, satisfied breath and reached for her hairbrush. It was then that her eyes fell on the bathroom counter. There, amidst the other items, still lay the envelope and the note that she had left behind. Both were completely dry now, although visibly altered by the water's impact. Once pristine, white paper of the envelope was crinkled and stained, with curled, warbled edges lifted at various angles, but the most striking change she discovered was on the note. Unexpectedly, and to Anna's sheer surprise, it bore a line of small text scrawled across it. Her heart fluttered with shock and excitement as she picked it up. How did this happen? She carefully examined the piece of paper, turning it around, trying not to damage further the fragile item. Then she picked up the envelope, and the realization struck her suddenly. The inscription in the front, which she thought to be sender's initials, Dampen M.E., was in fact a hint for her to decipher. Dampen me! The dampening had been part of the process to reveal the note's message. The ink, once hidden, had emerged as this morning's accidental exposure to water had magically unveiled it. It was a clever ruse, one that she failed to discern the previous night and would have missed completely would it not be for a lucky mishap. She looked at the envelope again, scrutinizing it closer. Her face darkened when she also discovered that it had been previously opened, subtly but unmistakably so. She hadn't noticed it before, likely because the envelope's flap was perfectly aligned to its seal, but now, after inspecting it in broad daylight, there was no doubt that someone tampered with it. So, Darius had anticipated the need for caution and had left her a clue without exposing himself. Anna chuckled softly to herself, admiring man's ingenuity and careful planning. "Clever move, my friend," she murmured softly to herself, appreciating the cunningness. "You really are one smart cookie." A sudden realization dawned on her then. If someone opened the note, then someone was possibly already watching and following her, and Darius was clever to take his precautions. The tale he uncovered could be the reason for his absence from their meeting yesterday evening. His non-appearance was a deliberate measure to keep himself safe. With a careful but determined and energetic gesture, Anna folded the note and placed it in her bag. The instructions she read on it clearly outlined her next steps, and as she prepared to leave, her resolve grew stronger. The mystery awaited her, and she was ready to uncover the next piece of this puzzle. The vibrant streets of Istanbul embraced her once more as she made her way towards the grand bazaar, carefully maintaining a facade of relaxed ease, as if she were just another traveler lost in the city's wonders. She moved with exaggerated nonchalance, her gaze casually drifting over the ancient buildings and bustling crowds, all while keeping her senses alert. Stepping into the Grand Bazaar felt like crossing into another world, a labyrinth of history and commerce, pulsing with color, scent, and sound. The moment Anna passed through its threshold, she was enveloped by a sensory symphony. Merchants called out in a medley of languages, their voices weaving through the rhythmic clinking of copper and silver trinkets. The air was thick with the teasing lure of freshly baked bread, the rich spice of saffron and cinnamon, and the faint, sugary whisper of Turkish delight. High above her, the vast domed ceiling gleamed with intricate mosaic tiles, turquoise, gold, and crimson woven into hypnotic patterns. Ornate arches framed the winding walkways, and tone columns, adorned with delicate carvings, stood supporting this feast of senses, their painted accents whispering stories of ancient craftsmanship. The passageways unfolded in a hypnotizing maze of color and texture. Rows of stalls spilled into the narrow corridors, their awnings a patchwork of vivid hues. Intricately woven carpets hung heavily off the walls, while shimmering silks, embroidered textiles, and gleaming jewelry caught the flickering light of hanging lanterns. Emerald greens, ruby reds, and sapphire blues blended into a kaleidoscope that dazzled the eye. Voices filled the air, haggling, greeting, laughing, a melodic hum of bartering and banter. Coins clinked, paper rustled, deals struck with a handshake and a knowing smile. The energy was electric, a ceaseless ebb and flow of commerce. At the heart of it all, the scent of roasting chestnuts mingled with the ever-present bold aroma of freshly brewed Turkish coffee. Small eateries nestled within the bazaar offered abundance of lush seating with a multitude of plump, tasseled cushions, their gilded designs and thin, delicate porcelain cups inviting weary shoppers to pause, sip, and savor the timeless rhythm of Istanbul's most iconic marketplace. The gardens around the palace were lush and well-maintained, filled with fragrant roses, tulips, and ancient knotty trees covered in velvety moss. All that provided a serene and private atmosphere. Marble fountains trickled gently, adding to the tranquil ambience. The palace's interior that one could glimpse through the large windows hinted at further splendors. Grand chandeliers, painted ceilings, and richly decorated halls that carried spirit of a bygone era of sultans and empires. The boat approached the secluded dock at the end of the garden, which was often used for private events and was less frequented by tourists. The journey was smooth, with the only sounds following them being the gentle lapping of the waves against the boat. The turquoise waters of the Bosphorus contrasted beautifully with the palace's pristine architecture, creating a picturesque and serene scene. As the boat docked, Anna adjusted her hijab and prepared herself for the encounter. She stepped off the boat and onto the dock, the grand palace standing silently as a witness to yet another event in the endless stretch of time.
This is the end of this chapter. Thank you very much for listening. Please let me know in the comments, what would you like to see further in the story? What do you think of the characters? What was the most interesting thing for you about this part of the story? I would love to hear your opinion and feedback.